I start anything. Hang on. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to you, whenever it is you tune in. Hope all is well. Thanks for tuning in at the time that you are. I'm Noah. The guy that's been talking to is Trey. And we have an idea that I kind of set up first. It took a while for me to try to make this because I had different ideas. And I'm trying to battle that because I wanted to make a top 100 fantasy production kind of list. But then I realized that list last year had a lot more quarterbacks than you remember, had a lot more kickers, had a lot more defenses. But then like in the entire top 100 only had about 2 tight ends. So I'm like, no, I need more even representation of everything. So what this list is going to look like is every team, and yes, they're going to have teams. I made this a 10-team league of 10 rounds each. And each team is going to have 2 quarterbacks. They're going to have at least 2 running backs, at least 3 receivers, at least a tight end. And then 5 teams are going to have defense. And a different 5 teams are going to have kickers. So 5 kickers, 5 defenses in order to represent the top 5 of those categories. Any other flex positions to kind of balance it out. So that's why you will see the list as it is. So as we get into it, if you guys have any sort of explanation as to what this list is going to look like, you can feel free to edit it. You can feel free to tell me to change it. But right now, this is our fantasy selections. This is just basically going off of my confidence level of each and every player going into it. There's going to be some increase and decreases as we get closer to the start of it. But that's just what it looks like for now. All right. It's good to have a starting point at something. So, moving on to picks 191. I'm just going to go through the list and see if everyone feels about it. If you want me to talk about honorable mentions, I can. But let's just start off with the first 10 names. So, starting off at number 100, I have Robert Tanyan Jr., the tight end for the Packers. At number 99, I have Greg Dolcich, the tight end for the Broncos. Number 98, I have Ryan Tannehill, Titans quarterback. 97, I have Jared Goff above him, Lions quarterback. Number 96, I have James Robinson. He is coming back from an injury, but I still see a lot of production from him as it comes back from that. You have 95, Chris Olave. I had to include some sort of Vince player on here. 94, Jelani Woods, Colts tight end. I believe he will start. If not, he should, because that guy is a monster in the red zone. 93 of Juju Smith-Schuster, basically the only actual receiver that I have on this list. I was debating between him and Sky Moore, but I just settled on Juju. Number 92, James Cook, the possible starting running back for the Bills. It's going to be him. It's going to be between him and Devin Singletary. And then 91, I have Darnell Mooney, wide receiver for the Bears. Now, you can go about this however way you want, but no, Trey's going to go with some sort of call. But for those viewing, how do you guys feel about that as a starting point? I wanted to include a lot more tight ends. Like I said, I had about 20 quarterbacks on this list in total. So this just kind of rounds up my top 20. That means that Ryan Tannehill is my 20th quarterback in fantasy. I just see a drop in production for him, honestly. I also think that there's going to be some quarterbacks that are going to be just better. Like, even Jared Goff. I think the Lions are going to be surprising a lot of people as they were really strangely competitive in a lot of their games last year. And they have enough pieces added this year to kind of elevate their play. So you get that. You get more cohesion from the offensive line. You get an extra year for the offense to really kind of gel. And then halfway into the season, you're going to get Jameson Williams as a reward. So that offense is going to be kicking around. All right. So don't see a whole lot of problems with that. Now, as far as Ryan Tannehill,
sucks.
I guess in one word you could say that. But yeah, you have a drop off in his receivers. A lot of them are questionable, right? I know how high I was on Kyle Phillips, rather. I knew how high I was on Chigoziem Okonkwo. And then they had another running back that they drafted right behind Derrick Henry. So it's like, yeah, they have running options. They're obviously a great running team. But their number one receiver is going to be Treylon Burks, who I'm hoping can do the same production that A.J. Brown can, but I can't really give him that confidence right off the start. I can see him being a solid option in, later on in the season. If you want to pick him up, you need an extra wide receiver for the bye week. You can give him a chance if he's actually, if he's exceeding expectations. But as of right now, he's just made off the list. He's an honorable mention here. And he's the number one receiver. There's really no one else that I trust more than him, and I don't trust him enough to be on this list. So, with that in mind, anything else? Greg Dolcich, he is the only receiving option. If you want to consider Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, the running back for the Broncos, if you want to consider them running options, obviously, then yeah, they're going to be on this list. They're going to be higher. Greg Dolcich, he's the only one that stands out to me above everyone else. Above a Courtland Sutton, above a Jerry Jeudy, above a Tim Patrick. Even though he's a rookie, I just feel like there's something about him that's gonna click with him and Wilson, because Wilson's not that known for throwing to his tight ends until they get in the red zone, where you can see even a guy like Jacob Hollister get surprisingly a bunch of touchdowns. You have Luke Wilson from years from before that. Like you have some weird tight ends that he had to work with that they're still going to produce. And now you have a top option. And then not to mention the guy like Albert, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that dude's last name, but they have some decent weapons on the Broncos. And I think he's going to emerge as the top guy there. So I'm going to give him that confidence to be on this list in the top 100. At least in the red zone, because he was fantastic at UCLA. All right. Trey, do you have any comments?
Hold on.
Okay. So, we can move on to that. We can say hi to everyone else that's here. I see about 8 sets of eyeballs. How's it going, everybody? Yeah, that's what the first batch looks like.
Now I'm back.
Okay. Anything else to say?
I like that you have your faith in Greg Dolcich. You don't really see that out of everybody, especially for rookie tight ends. But like I said, underdog mentality. I love it. Plus, it's like Greg. He kind of reminds me of Jimmy Graham in a receiving type way, just because he's like a good contested catcher too. So I like that about him. But yeah, I like that you have that confidence in him.
Yeah, because there's something that's like Courtland Sutton seemed inconsistent. I know he can be good. Jerry Jeudy is inconsistent, but I know he can be good. Tim Patrick is just underutilized because I know he's good. Dolcich, he doesn't have that problem as of yet. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to say, hey, the Broncos are going to be really good this season, and he's going to be a main reason why. That's just how it is. Moving on, we have Tony Wright. We have Coach among us. So good to see you guys. If you think this is good stuff, then know that I spent way too much time on this thing. I remember showing you guys the board that I had on my from the heavy hitters from a while back, and now it is just straight up numbers. Yeah, it was wild. I had to fight a lot of internal thoughts, but this is the final product, and me and Trey talked about it before we hopped on the show. And other than a few other changes, I'm not completely crazy, so that's good. Moving on to picks 90 through 81. All right. So I did this as a snake order. Forgot that. At 90, if Carson Wentz, quarterback for the Commanders, he could be higher if I can trust him to start all 17 games. I kind of can. And even if I don't, he's still a better option than Jared Goff at the time for me. Because you have so many receivers, possible receiving options for the Commanders, like obviously Terry McLaurin, who's going to be on this list. But then you have Jahan Dotson, who was going to be an honorable mention for this list. I don't have him top 100 yet, but I do have a couple of other receivers, rookie receivers, as you can see in Christian Watson at 88. But yeah, you have him. You have Logan Thomas, and we know how much the Carson Wentz loves to throw to tight ends. So I think that's a good option. Antonio Gibson, obviously he's going to be a good choice, barring any health injuries. And even then, they had some solid options in the backfield too. Patriots defense. It was between them and the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys actually led the league among defensive in terms of fantasy points last year, surprisingly enough. It was obviously because of, tipped interceptions and Parsons. But I don't know. I see them being figured out a little bit more. Obviously, their corners gave up a lot more yards than they want to admit. And DeMarcus Lawrence isn't there. You got to see some sort of drop-off in that. And I hate to say it, but the Patriots defense, I can't tell you all the 11 starters, but I know that Bill Belichick is going to put them in shape all right. It's just kind of that. Like, they were the second team in terms of fantasy production last year. Like, how? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Christian Watson, he is rather low on this list to some people, but I think until he proves himself, even though you have second round guys like Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams, obviously, not even they were like themselves like right away. Like they still had to be gradually acclimated into the offense, and they still have to gel with Aaron Rodgers, which definitely takes some time, unless you're a witch. Anyways, DJ Moore is the only Panther on here. Now, Christian McCaffrey, you could make the case that, hey, if he starts all 17 games, yeah, he's easily a top 50 player. When was the last time he started every game?
2017, 18. Basically, the last time they made the playoffs.
Yeah, we're in the 20s in the decade. Like, if we have to say teens for anything, yeah, it's not that good. Davonte Smith, I almost completely forgot about him until I was making this list. So he's landing at 86, just above DJ Moore. DJ Moore, I didn't talk about him, but he's a quiet contributor. Like, despite what we were saying about the quarterback situation in Carolina, it was probably worse than it is now last year, and he still was among the top 100 players in terms of fantasy production. So even if a bad quarterback situation is dealt with him, he can still make it work. Everyone else can't, but DJ Moore, surprisingly so. Davonte Smith obviously might be the second option, might be just a 1A, 1B type of situation with A.J. Brown, but I do have A.J. Brown being above him for now. And above him is the Eagles teammate Jake Elliott. I only have 5 kickers on this entire list. Like I said, he's the 5th one. And you'll kind of understand as to why I have the other 4 the way they are. But there was a lot of competition for that 5th spot for kickers, because you had Daniel Carlson for the Raiders, that led the league in scoring last year from on kickers. You had Nick Folk for the Patriots. You have Harrison Butker for the Chiefs. You have Ryan Sucker for the Bucks. You possibly have Rodrigo Blankenship for the Colts, although he didn't have all that great of a season last year. But you can kind of see the resurgence of the offense there. Jake Elliott is among those teams that's like, yeah, I see the Eagles getting a lot of scoring positions. So that makes your kickers relevant. Like, if you have an offense that can get your kicker in a position, then yeah, I'm going to take your kicker. Because even if he's not all that great of an option, like Nick Folk, if you give him enough chances, then yeah, he's gonna do good. 84, I have Garrett Wilson. What were we saying?
I was about to say for the kicker thing, or he's better than any other Vikings kicker too. Just saying.
Greg Joseph. That's who the Vikings kicker is. He wasn't too bad either, honestly, last year. But yeah. I see Jake Elliott just being better. Garrett Wilson, second wide receiver taken in last year's draft. I say he lands here for now. He could be land higher if Zach Wilson proves to be, have any sort of semblance of an upgrade. Then I was thinking about a second receiver for the Jets, and then I couldn't decide on who they want to go with. Do they go with Elijah Moore? Do they go with Corey Davis? Do they go with Braxton Berrios? Like, those three receivers, like, they're all kind of the same level for me at the moment. So I'm just going to avoid them. 83, Travis Etienne. Going to come back. Going to be a part of the Jaguars offense, just like whatever GM that they had. But the way Trevor Lawrence wants to use them, I think that they're going to find really good chemistry with each other. You have Doug Peterson, who's, say what you want about him, he's a massive upgrade over who they had before, So take that for what it's worth. I'm going to put him above James Robinson for round because I think they have more of a plan for him. Even if it is like a third down back or whatever, he's going to get some touches. Brandon Cooks, 82. Solid option. He will never disappoint you if you pick him up in fantasy. And despite Davis Mills being his receiving target or being his quarterback, he was always good. You can give him chopped liver as quarterback, and he's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. So I say, yeah, put him here. But if this is the bar from here on out for anything else, just so you know, like, hey, this is how I think of your receiver. Whoops. Bit of a spoiler moving forward. But then 81, T. Higgins, the third Bengal receiver. So just keep an eye out for that. But, yeah. So now I'm taking a look back at the chat. We got Alex Edward. Whew. Yeah. Wallace, how's it going? Wallace, I know very little about fantasy. Well, it's okay. That's why we're here. Basically,
it's quick and easy to learn.
Oh, yeah. Basically, how I set this up is you have 10 teams. They're going to have a draft process. And I gave them 10 rounds to go through this process. Now, you're deciding your players and possibly like position groups based off of how consistent you think they can be over the period of a season. And when you delegate a certain amount of points to their performance, that's when you can kind of compare everything to each other. You can kind of compare positions. Like Josh Allen led the entire league in fantasy and fantasy points because, he was a fantastic quarterback, But then you have other situations where you need to find out that, you have like 5 different Falcons players on your fantasy team, and then the Falcons have a bye week. And then you're like, crap, I now have like 5 positions to fill. So consider this a warning for anyone that's getting their toes into fantasy. Like, don't go for too many options of the same team. You can go for about 2, create yourself a good duo. You can possibly go for 3 if they're really worth having. Like if you want like a quarterback and then like a running back duo, that's fine. We can accept that. But if your entire team is one team, not a good idea. Because when team goes down, you have to trust someone else. So you really can't be like super focused on just getting one team or one position group or whatever the case may be. And then, yeah, that's kind of it. They can kind of accumulate the points as the week goes. And then by the end of the week, or like Tuesday morning, you can get your results. And then you can figure out, hey, my team put up 150 fantasy points because my quarterback had like 30. My running backs had like 30. wide receiver had like 15. Whatever the case may be, like they will add it all up based off of how well your team did, and then kind of like an elimination process from there. So anyone that's new, anyone that's getting into it, that's the basic gist of it. Maybe that's what you knew, but that's kind of all it is. It isn't too
detailed.
Yeah, it's as easy as you want to make it, but it can be as hard as you want to make it too, which is why I've done this, because I got that football craving, But any other comments you have to say about this group?
One about the drafting from the same team, multiple players. I had that mistake last year. Last year was my first year in fantasy. If you're in the Discord, we started one, and we're probably going to end up starting another one when the season starts. But, yeah, I drafted like 4 or 5 Buccaneers players. I think it was Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, and like 2 other people. I think it was Cameron Brate. And went on a bye week, and the score was like 110 to 66. Didn't help that I had Lamar as my starting quarterback too, so yeah. But
another good point by Wallace. You can't always go off of what they did the year before. All right, keep that in mind as we go on to the part 2 of this, and as we continue part 1, obviously. But yeah, obviously we're getting into rookies. How can we go off of what they did before the year before? This is their first year, and then some of them are going through some other changes, like Travis Etienne, second year in the league, but first year actually being on the field for the Jaguars, that sort of stuff. You can kind of get a hint as to where a team or a player is going, just as far as like, okay, well, this is the shape, this is the look of their team. Take a look at the Packers. Like, you lost Davante Adams. You're going to try to make Christian Watson be your number 1 receiver, possibly. Do you use Allen Lazard instead? Or do you just want to completely avoid that and just go to a running game? If you think that they can go to a running game, which, by the way, they have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, yeah, you can pick them up instead. If you want Robert Tanyan as another safe option, go with them instead if you don't trust the receivers. Because you know that Aaron Rodgers is going to throw. Like, that's something you can't take away from that team. But maybe the receivers isn't up to par. So maybe Aaron Rodgers dips a little bit more in comparison to what he did the year before. I know this dude's like back-to-back MVPs, but there's something's got to give there, And then, yeah, there's going to be some dips. There's going to be some increases. Not everyone's going to stay the same. Yeah, Cooper Kupp was going to be the biggest surprise for you guys on this thing for me. But, yeah, that's kind of it.
I was going to say, Cooper Kupp's kind of an example of that. I mean, 2020, he did good in fantasy, but he was like in the mid-tier. Of course, a year later, he's literally number 1 or 2 behind, either in front or behind Jonathan Taylor. So,
Cooper Kupp was in the league since like 2017, and it was always an option. It's like, well, you can either go for him or you can go for Robert Woods, and you wouldn't really feel bad about not taking the other guy. Now, like, if you took Robert Woods this year instead of taking Cooper Kupp, now you look like an idiot. But, that's just how it is. There's going to be surprises all across the board. The Cordero Patterson was the biggest surprise, really. So, hey, we got Jamer says here. He's going to join us. We're going to get to some more defenses. Don't you worry. I have 4 more on the list to show off. All right, now. But the numbers on here is about I did a snake draft, so that's kind of why the numbers look a little bit weird on the screen. But when I see the final product in part 2, you'll kind of understand why I did this. But yeah. Well, it says you have to have 3 or 4 studs. You're going to play every week. Yeah. Generally, running backs are like the most valuable position to try to get early. So try to incorporate that as much as possible. Try to get one running back that at least that you trust, or maybe get like a backup duo, uh, two of the same guy. You know, maybe you can get maybe they be either at the front of the draft or at the back of the draft of a snake draft, and then you can get two back-to-back options at running back. Either way, we're so valuable of the running back position because when they're good, they're great. But when they're okay, that can make or break an entire season for you. Wide receivers, they can fluctuate too, but there's 64 wide receiver spots for starters, but there's only 32 running backs that can really start. And even then, some teams go by a committee. So that kind of takes off another couple of teams. So it makes like maybe there's like 20 running backs that you trust instead of 32, you know? So now you got to get those 20. It's just some of the problems that you have to go off of. But yeah, value the running backs first, then value a wide receiver. You can wait to get a quarterback later. You can wait to get a defense later. Like you don't have to worry about filling up everything about your team. You know, if you want to just, hey, I'm going to start getting like 4 or 5 different running backs because I'm just going to cause chaos for the rest of my league. Yeah, you can do that, and then pick up a quarterback or pick up a defense afterwards that's to your liking. You know, I did that with like 2 of my leagues last year, and then I won a championship in one of them, and then I was second place in the championship in another one, then I was third in another one. It's like I had like 4 leagues last year, and I did at worst like third place in all 4 of them. So, giving you some free fantasy advice. Some fantasy advice, so good. Apparently, another YouTube channel or whatever wanted to invite me a couple weeks back, and not to toot our own horn, but we still had the most views on that entire channel. So not bad, but that's really from your guys' appreciation. So appreciate that. Kind of got to know your football to play fantasy. Yeah, a broad spectrum of the entire league is crucial. So as we get into that, we're going to focus on 80 through 71. 80 is Mac Jones. 39 just above him is Tua. He can seem kind of low, but then pay attention to everyone else that's above him. 78, I have the Chargers defense and special teams. There was another one that was like, hey, it's either them, or it's either the Cowboys. Because I could either represent the Cowboys again, or I can realize that Chargers got Khalil Mack, they got J.C. Jackson, they have a second year of Dante Smith Jr. They have Joey Bosa that's going to come back. They have Derwin James that's going to come back. Like, how do you not fail? Like, how do you fail if you're that defense? The only thing that I would see is like, hey, look at the division that they're playing. You know, they have a high potent Broncos, high potent Raiders, possibly high potent Chiefs again. That can kind of make you feel uncomfortable, but let's just lean towards them being good for now. Nyheim Hines, backup to Jonathan Taylor on the Colts. Now, I am including him here because in any of the reports that I get, Matt Ryan loves Nyheim Hines as a receiving option. And I'm pretty sure we all know who Matt Ryan is. Yeah, he's loving him. So we're going to incorporate a lot more of him on the offense just because a lot of people are like, oh, hey, well, who's he going to throw to on the Colts? It's like he's got options if you really pay attention to him. And this is one of them. So be on the lookout for him. He might not be a round 8 selection. He might be selected earlier than that. So just pay attention. Kyler Murray at 76, even though he's like a top 10 quarterback last year. Now, this is where I started to realize that, okay, if I'm making 10 teams, then that means that logically there's only 10 quarterbacks that I have to pick. But most of you guys are going to be worried about, okay, well, who is he having at, who's the guy that's at 11th or who's the guys at 12th? Like, okay, well, these are the guys that, and this is where they are. I kind of felt bad for not including them, so I made this list bigger in order to include them. So Kyler Murray's at 76. You're not going to have DeAndre Hopkins for about 6 games at least. You're going to have to figure out Hollywood Brown, which I know that they played in college again, but it's a different offense, technically. So you have that to do with. You possibly have a little bit more in the ground game for them. I know that James Conner was also another great resurgence for them. Led the league in touchdowns last year. I don't think he does that again, unfortunately, because that was just way too random. See, there's going to be a little bit of a decline for him, but he's still a solid guy to have. I'm not saying he sucks. I'm obviously putting him on the top 100 fantasy players. He's good. But let's take a look at the rest of the list first. I have Matt Stafford just above him. Now, another guy that's fantastic last year. But the reason as to why I dropped him a bit is because you have Cooper Kupp, but you lost Robert Woods to Tennessee. You lost OBJ to the injury. You have Andrew Whitworth retired. Most of your key pieces on your offensive line isn't there anymore. And you might have a running back rotation, which you didn't have before because Cam Akers was gone. So you might include him. You might have less targets to throw to. Your second best receiving option is probably Van Jefferson, which some of you are probably saying, who? But yeah, I just don't see it. He was good when he only had Calvin Johnson to throw to. Cooper Kupp is not Calvin Johnson. I'm sorry. You had a fantastic season, but that was with help. That was when people didn't really understand what to do with you. Now you're going to get more looks than you did this past season. So I see just a bit of a drop off there. Dak Prescott just above him. He drops because of Amari Cooper. They're trying to encourage more usage of Ezekiel Elliott. So take that for what it's worth. But now you have CeeDee Lamb. You have Michael Gallup going to come back from injury. You have Dalton Schultz that was a top 3 tight end in terms of fantasy last year. I don't know if he repeats that because you have a lot more tight ends in contention than you did the year before. So yeah, Dak Prescott lands here. Still better than Matt Stafford. Still better than Kyler Murray because obviously he's another dual threat running back or quarterback that actually has 2 threats to his game. Kirk Cousins just above him. Again, it's another situation like Tua where it's how do you fail when you have Justin Jefferson, you have Adam Thielen, you have Irv Smith Jr. at the tight end, which I know he's not all that great of an option now, but just wait until he gets more comfortable. And then you have Dalvin Cook behind him. You're always going to be a top contention in as far as a fantasy selection. But why you're lower is because, you just got to do a little bit more than everyone else that's above you. And it's winning more games, being involved in a lot more series where you're the victor. Can you do more than what Case Keenum did in 2017? You haven't matched it. So until I see it from your production, I know you put up great stats, which is why I'm putting you here. But can you be higher than that? I want to say yes, but I just haven't seen it. Number 72, Jk Dobbins. Coming back from his injury in Baltimore. He should have been the number 1 back over there. Instead, it was Devontae Freeman and then just a collection of other guys. He should be the number 1 guy coming back. And we know how good the Ravens are at run blocking when you can make a washed Devontae Freeman look like we missed him. So we're going to see some good things from him. Possibly some more from Gus Edwards. That can also come back for them. They also had Tyson Williams. He was more of an early kind of guy. Didn't really prove to be much of anything else after that. But I see JK being good. Amon-Ra St. Brown at number 71. Again, if I'm gonna include Jared Goff on this list, you better believe there's about 4 more receiver, 4 more options for the Lions. I got to be ahead of him. Like, come on. It's another situation. Like, there's no way you fail when you have Amon-Ra St. Brown that had a fantastic season if you weren't paying attention. T.J. Hawkinson, another top 5 pick from a couple years ago as a tight end. And he's still proving out to be more and more reliable for them. You have DeAndre Swift coming back. He's always a great, solid option as a runner and a receiving threat. You have Jameson Williams coming back. We already talked about this. DJ Chark is going to be on the lines as well. Come on, there's a lot of different good things, but Amon-Ra is the star of the show for now, and so for the notice, especially a receiver at least. So that is 80 through 71. Let's take a look and see what we got here. The schedule is a big part in picking your players. Absolutely. And then from last piece of advice, I guess, if you want to try to get a starter at every position, which is why even though I included like Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins for the Bengals, that's because they throw a lot, Like, there ain't no way that they don't, unless they really incorporate Joe Mixon, which I think they can. How's it going, Eric Mack? You're just staring at me. Trey had something else to do, so I think he'll be back, I'm sure. Unless if he ditches me again. Don't worry. I don't have the same problem as I did last time. All right. Anything else? Any other I don't know, any discussions that you guys want to make about this? If not, I can just move on to 70 through 61. With the be it. I know it's still kind of new for everyone. Now it's really late for a lot of you guys as well. So, all right. I mean, this can be changed and amended too when we go back and focus on the part 2. So don't fret too much if you don't agree with it. We can still discuss it live. So, all right, moving on to picks 70 through 61. Tyler Bass, the Bills kicker. He's the 4th guy among kickers that I'm going to talk about. The other 3 are pretty much right in front of him. Lamar Jackson. Now, this is quite the controversial take. But it's more so of health reasons than anything else. Whatever anyone else's concern is about Mariota, I have the same thing for Lamar Jackson. And that's more so because of his playing style and the fact that he probably needs to feel like he's the hero. Generally, your quarterback body cannot be the hero for much longer. So either you draft Lamar Jackson really high, have him play 6 games, have Tyler Huntley finish out the season, and then you just kind of have to all right, if I draft Lamar Jackson now, just know I might have to start worrying about getting his backup too. And I don't want you guys to feel about that or feel that way. So obviously he can jump up and be like the top 10 pick. But until I feel like he can take on that role and take on whatever the role the offense wants to give him again, which is obviously going to be a good running option, which is obviously going to be a good option for a good duo for Mark Andrews. But Jk Dobbins is a question mark. You have Rashad Bateman as your number 1 receiver. That's a question mark. Anything else after him is a question mark. You have like 4 different tight ends, and that's good. Do you want to include them instead and just have 4 tight ends on the field? I don't really know what direction that they're trying to go with on offense, but I know that they're going to be good at running, and that's going to help them out. But as far as being in a shootout, you can try. He's certainly athletic enough to do that on his own. With the weight of the rest of the team to support him, I just don't see it. Not this year, at least. He definitely did 2 years ago, but that was when he was more of a surprise than anything else. So above him, Younghoe Koo. You get yourself a good offense that has a reliable kicker that can give you plenty of opportunities in order to go in the red zone. And I think that that's what we can be. And if you don't think that, just know that even in 2020, as bad as that was when we were 4-12, Younghoe Koo led the league in scoring. Like all of the league, not just fantasy. Like, yeah, he's a great kicker. And now we have a better offense than we did in 2020. We shouldn't have to worry about him getting enough chances in order to be a top option. So you have that. Above him, Justin Tucker. I still think that the Ravens can get the ball down the field. Don't worry. Like, Justin Tucker can make another freaking record of a field goal length. So I don't have a problem with him. You know, or the offense, really. And the number one kicker, in case you're interested, Evan McPherson for the Bengals. Already made a name for himself in the playoffs and whatnot. So I say that you get the top, possibly top offense again in the Bengals. They're going to give you tons of chances in order to score more points if you're a kicker. And also, he's really accurate. So there's not that much of an issue. You can get him first and then feel great about it. 65, I have Kenneth Walker, the starting running back, possibly for the Seahawks. Chris Carson could have been on this list if he wasn't so worried about the injury to his neck. This is the whole reason as to why they drafted Kenneth Walker in the first place. It's because they don't believe Chris Carson to be as healthy or even as active as he might want to be. So that leads me to believe that they are going to rely on their running back situation more so than the quarterback situation because Drew Lock and Geno Smith ain't going to cut it. But Kenneth Walker is still a really good running back. You know, loved him coming out of college. Then you have the Dolphins defense and special teams. And they're here more so because of the special teams than anything else. Because you have Jalen Waddle, you have Tyreek Hill, and I know they haven't been really receiving or special teams returners, but that team is just the team always finds a way to get another guy out of nowhere that's just super fast and can score from any distance. And same thing for the rest of the Dolphins defense, you know. They have some playmakers on the team. You know, you have Xavier Howard, one of the top receivers or corners in the league. He's not better than Terrell, but still solid, really good option. You know, Byron Jones playing playing opposite from him, solid option. You know, you have your linebackers, Van Ginkel. He's an underrated guy. You have a defensive line with Jalen Phillips and Christian Wilkins. They're going to get to the quarterback. They did before. I feel good about their defensive situation over there. So I'm going to give them a nod there. So put him at 64. Dawson Knox, tight end for Buffalo. Great option. It's part of what made the Bills so great in the later half of the season. So, yeah, he's like the second best option for that Buffalo team. And if you think that the Buffalo is going to be a good team, he's like the second best reason as to why. But get him. Especially in a thinner position group, you know, then a wide receiver. So you feel good about him. Then the Bills defense. You know, just double down on how good the Bills are going to be. They were among the top defenses last year, and they just got substantially better. You know, they're going to get Tre'Davious White back. They added Von Miller, which you may not see as much of an upgrade because he's 33, but he also led that team. He also led the Rams in pressures in the times that he was there. Like, not just the Rams, but, like, I think the entire league from, like, week 8 onward. So the guy still has their pass rushing abilities, and now he's going to make that defense even better. So, yeah, I say watch out for that. Colts defense is just above them. So the Colts are the top defense and special teams for me because when you just add the likes of Yannick Ngakoue and Stephon Gilmore to what was already there in DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, Darius Leonard, Kenny Moore, that's among the best guys right there. And they're going to add some quality depth on top of that. Yeah, this is going to be the best defense. So I love the additions that they made there, and I think they can gel really well, really fast. Now, any question marks about this group? Surprised there hasn't been any sort of comments about Lamar Jackson. But either I am boring everyone to death, or you guys are just not all that curious or interested, or whatever the case may be. I'm just trying to figure out what's next going on. All in good fun, though. All right, last section. Then we're going to call it until Trey gets back, which it is what it is. All right, 60. I have TJ Hockenson, Lions tight end. Again, I'm going to like the Lions this year. And he's going to be the next big reason as to why. I know I said that Amon-Ra is going to be the star, but as far as the guys that you want to get early on, I say get TJ first because obviously, again, it's going to be more competition for the tight end group, whereas there's so many receivers that I'm not even including on this list. It's frankly unbelievable. But yeah, TJ Hockenson is always going to be reliable. Leonard Fournette in front of him. You have a different rotation over there in Tampa. You're going to include him with Rachaad White instead of Ronald Jones. I think Rachaad White is possibly another honorable mention to be on this list. I don't know how much they're going to use him, which is why I didn't put him on here yet. But you got to think the Bucs don't have Chris Godwin right away. So they don't even have Gronk as of now. So you're going to rely on either Cameron Brate or Cade Otton. I don't know. Russell Gage is there, obviously. And he's a solid 3. Decent 2. But Mike Evans is number 1. He's going to be the best security blanket you can get. But you need a balanced team. So Leonard Fournette is going to be the feature back there. So I like that. Breece Hall, I think he's the top running back or top rookie running back for me. I think he can make the Jets into a decent running team. Now, I would have said the same thing about Michael Carter last year, and then I realized that, oh yeah, Josh Wilson didn't work out. I think Zach Wilson, rather. I think Zach Wilson can be slightly better just because of the talent around him now. Again, I put Garrett Wilson just beneath him. I just don't see how you can fail when you have like 4 different contentions for receivers, and you have Jeremy Ruckert, which was a long-time fan of the Jets apparently. So yeah, you're going to have those guys there, but Breece Hall is going to still try to be the star of the show. That's just what that offensive line allows him to be. Second option, Tyler Boyd for the Bengals. Could have put him higher, but it's Jamar Chase's world, and we're just living in it at this point until further notice, especially when you talk about the Bengals. A sneaky option for the Bengals might be Hayden Hurst. Now, he did next to nothing with us, but they don't have CJ Uzomah because he's also in the Jets, which I just remembered. So they're gonna look for the other tight end one, and they used him rather well too. CJ Uzomah, that is. So they use the tight ends as well. Obviously, Joe Mixon's going to be like the best running back to get. But yeah, they throw a lot. So get the receivers. Mike Gesicki, tight end for the Dolphins. Another sneaky good option. If you don't remember him, he's probably responsible for more one-handed catches on the Dolphins highlight reels than you may remember. Yeah, he's always a good threat. And I think that with the addition to Tyreek Hill, it's going to make more one-on-ones, which is what he will eat up if Tua can get the ball to him properly. Now, I like his chances of doing that this year, which is why I included him over here at 79. Arthur Henry. You may not remember him from any specific highlights for the Patriots, but he was like top 5 in fantasy production last year. And I don't know how, but yeah, he was being used a lot, and he could probably have that same fate. Jonnu Smith was not being used at all. They didn't get much better in the receiving room. They got rid of N'Keal Harry as it is. So now you have either Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, They drafted Tyquan Thornton. Those names are not going to be all that relevant. But in the backfield, you have Damian Harris. You have Pierce Strong, which I hope they use him well. Like I was so high on him during the draft process. But yeah, as it is, that's still Hunter Henry's offense. Take that for what it's worth. Dalton Schultz. Now, he was the third best tight end in fantasy last year, right behind Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. And I was really shocked at that. I don't remember that many Dalton Schultz highlights, but he's sneakily good in terms of his production. And I think that he can match that same thing. Now, again, like we talked about with Dak Prescott, who's just above, kind of just under him. He might get less looks, but he might get more meaningful looks if that makes any difference. Like, yeah, they lost Amari Cooper, but CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup coming back, they want to incorporate more of Zeke Elliott, and I think the best way to do that is incorporate more play action. And the best couple of plays for play action that I recall involved Dalton Schultz instead. So you can get him involved. What could knock him down is also them drafting Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin, another tight end that I just absolutely loved. So they should probably incorporate him more. I don't know if they're going to, though. So I'm kind of leaving him there. He could really spike up this list. Melvin Gordon, another guy. You might not remember him doing so well if you don't pay attention to the Broncos, but he had as many touches as Javonte Williams and performed about the same, honestly. This time around, I think they want to incorporate more Javonte than Melvin, but Melvin's still a great option until further notice, especially if you're looking for a running back duo. And if you drafted Javonte early, get Melvin Gordon right afterwards. That's a great pairing, especially if you want to make that Broncos team work and function. Incorporate the running game. That was the best thing that was going for them last year. Terry McLaurin is 52. Now, he might seem rather low to some, but if you look at the total amount of points scored in fantasy last year, he didn't even crack the top 100. And I was kind of surprised at that. So now I'm going to actually do him a favor and put him here and almost put him in the top 50. Is it because of Carson Wentz? Not really, but it's more so because of everything else that's around him. Like, he wanted that extension because he wanted to get the help. Well, now he's got the help. So he's still the guy that stopped there, and he's pretty darn tough to stop. So I'd like to see more out of him, and I think we're going to see that this year. So grab him if you can. And then number 51, DeAndre Swift. Rather anticlimactic name to end off of. But, again, if you want to see the Lions do good, use the running game. Get a complementary offensive system going. And they used him a lot, not just in the running, but also in the receiving game, too. Now, he was probably a better option than Aaron Jones last year, and that says a lot. So, yeah, you can get him. If you want to see the rest of this list, for the 10 people that care.
Part 2 next week.
Part 2 next week, possibly. But also exclusively on my channel. Because this did next to nothing on Mad Max Sports. This did next to nothing on Atlanta Falcons Nation. This did nothing on Twitch. So if you're still interested, you can come over to my channel. You can subscribe to that. It's just basically my name and Noah Tyndall. You can find it pretty easily. It has the same logo that you've seen me comment on in the past. So that is the list now. I have surprising that I haven't gotten any sort of comments about this, but
well, it is Saturday and late, so I'll give it this one. You know how people are on Saturday, but
yeah, we would have went with an earlier time, but I still had to finish this thing.
And I had children to deal with. I still have children to deal with.
Yeah. So I can
At least
get
I was
that.
listening in, though. I was listening and watching in. Oh, my God.
But yeah, that's going to be the show. I'm surprised that we got through this in under an hour. Normally this kind of takes long. I think the last show was like 2 hours. and I was like, I don't want to do that again.
We barely escaped. It was like 1 second, like literally a second before 2 hours.
So yeah, I'm gonna save you guys some extra time and not drag this out any further. But this is the list. And to quick recap, there's 100 through 91. I don't know if you want to read them out, Trey, because my voice is done.
Hold on, got you. So, let's see. What do I? Oh yeah. So, 99, Greg Dolcich. 98, Ryan Tannehill. 7, Jared Goff. After that is James Robinson. Then Chris Olave, Jelani Woods, Juju Smith Schuster, aka TikTok, James Cook, Darnell Mooney to end off 91. On to 90, Carson Wentz, Patriots defense at 89, or respect the Patriots defense and special teams at 89. Then Christian Watson at 88. DJ Moore at 87. Davonte Smith at 86. 85 is 60-yard kicker Jake Elliott. 84, Garrett Wilson. 83, Travis Etienne. 82, Brandon Cooks. And 81, T. Higgins. At 80, we have the Pro Bowl gritty, Mac Jones. 79, Tua. 78, Chargers defense and special teams. 77, really my favorite off of this list, Nyheim Hines. 76, Kyler Murray. 75, Matt Stafford. 74, Dak Prescott. 73, Kirk Cousins. 72, Jk Dobbins. And 71, Amon-Ra St. Brown. At 70, we have this is our first kicker, right?
Fourth.
Kicker. Yeah, fourth kicker. Tyler Bass. 69, Lamar Jackson. 68, the best kicker in the game, Young Hoiku. 67, Justin Tucker. 66, Evan McPherson. 65, Kenneth Walker. 64, the Dolphins defense and special teams. 63, Dawson Knox. 62, Bills defense and special teams. And 61, Colts defense and special teams. At 60, we have the TJ Hawkinson. 59, Leonard Fournette. 58, Breece Hall. 57, Tyler Boyd. 56, Mike Gesicki. 55, Hunter Henry. 54, Dalton Schultz. I don't know why I mispronounced his name so much. 53, Melvin Gordon. 52, Terry McLaurin. And to end off part 1, DeAndre Swift.
So, any comments, complaints, feedback, changes, anything you want to make? You can see me during part 2 if you're catching this later on. And then you can try to do this at a little bit more convenient time. But hey, that's what I got so far. The top 50 is going to be much more interesting because there's a lot more comparisons to make. Oh yeah.
Way more
DeAndre Swift is not going to put any extra butts and seats on this Falcons podcast. But that's how it is. I'm a bit tougher on these quarterbacks than I am. I probably should be, but that's it. That's the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys sticking around. And yeah, part 2 specifically on my channel only. That way you can blame this on me for it bombing. But
the professor and my new nickname on here, Young Gun. I just came up with that like 2 days ago. I don't know why.
I can try to keep that in mind. Can you send me the list when completed? Absolutely. I'll probably keep it in in a video form. So yeah, if you guys want this, I can put a. If you guys are in the Discord, I can probably put a Discord link in part 2. I probably should have done this from part 1.
I'll put in.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. Probably pin it down. Probably in the description on my channel.
All right.
It's a bit more safer. All right. Thank you guys, and see ya.